Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse Tech for Humanity Summit Asia. And we are coming off the heels of an incredible roundtable discussion. We certainly have the... When you think about these small moments that we get when it comes to expression, where groups of people from around the world come together, it really does lend to the ideas of what GatherVerse dramatically and dedicated with all of its commitment intersects at the intersection of humanity and emerging technologies. To hear what we just talked about when it comes to accessibility, led by Lynn Gattal, and the different professionals from so many different paths, Lindsay, of the things that they've come to know and understand, of all the things that each of those professionals could speak about, and the things that they can talk about, that we've heard them express, that they all inherently saw the need to be able to convene together to talk about accessibility for the sense of global capacity. I find that rather extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen of GatherVerse, those that are coming with us at GatherVerse.live and the various social stream platforms that we're streaming to at this moment, we've arrived to our final session. This is a fireside discussion with Lindsay Ray Perry. And Lindsay, we want to welcome you. We greet you in global community. We'd like for you to let the audience know who you are, what you're doing, and what inspired you to be here with us today.
Well, hello, everyone. These conversations have really been inspiring. I've heard some really great points, and what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. I am Lindsay Ray Perry. I am a healing-centered strategist. I'm the founder of Journey to CEO. My work really lands at the intersection of healing and innovation and making sure that we have an equitable future for humanity. What inspired me to be here today was I was supposed to be with you guys June 24th, but I couldn't. I had the passing of my mother, and I am pushing through because I believe that this is a part of my calling and my purpose. And purpose is never postponed. And I'm just gathering that energy of my mother and my stepfather, who also passed away yesterday. And I'm here. And so give me grace, but I'm here to have this conversation, and it's about healing and care and truth. And I think I'm in the perfect position to talk about that.
Well, Lindsay, first and foremost, I want to give condolences for your mother and your stepfather. And
thank you.
How are you feeling?
Thank you for asking that. And that's such a great intro point, because I think we don't ask that question, honestly. I have a myriad of emotions. I definitely took time off from June to yesterday to really grieve, to really do nothing, to rest, to build community, to be angry, to be sad, to have joy, to think about the memories. And so I'm deeply grieved. I'm deeply saddened, but I'm also hopeful, because the woman that my parents raised, I'm proud of. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud of the parents that I had, and I'm just going to continue the legacy. So,
well, I know, and I'm sure the GatherVerse community will agree with me that they're very proud of you for the leader that you've become, especially under the banner of healing, care, and truth, for such a discussion at this intersection. And I can tell you from personal experience that it's always better when you know that you carry them in your heart, that they're with you, and that they carry you with them. And, you know, from my experience, with both of my parents passed 9 months apart, it completely changed my life. And so, but I am spiritually thankful to my Heavenly Father for just giving me the grace and mercy to be able to persist on. And so from myself, my heart, and our whole GatherVerse community, we certainly hope that you have good healing and strength and are able to sustain through this powerful journey that you're having. And thank you for even taking the time. It's for such an occasion as this for you of what you're experiencing to be able to join us. And on that note, I want to ask you, what is healing, care, and truth when we talk about this intersection of technology? How does healing, care, and truth find its way into the development of the scale of AI infrastructure in the frontier? Typically, because we don't hear that in product delivery, we don't see that in product development, we don't think about shippable models for healing, care, and truth and trust. We typically don't see that. How has this landed at our doorstep today?
Well, healing, care, and truth is what we're doing right now, right? Which is not the mask. It's not the pretense. It's not me coming on here and saying I got it all figured out. I don't feel like we need to. People always ask themselves, like, am I ready? And I don't think as a human, it's a matter of being ready. I think it's a matter of just being real and leading with the truth of who you are and authenticity. And people can see that authenticity and glean from that and heal in their own stories. But in the landscape of AI, we're having a lot of conversations about how it's going to be profitable for human beings, or how it's going to be profitable for the major companies and even smaller companies, and on a global scale, on a rural scale. And to be truthfully honest, I think we can start by asking ourselves a question, like, what would it look like if we measured GDP, present and future? We measured our emotional well-being in the same way within humanity. And we can say, well, how can you measure that? I mean, there's no way to measure that. Well, certainly we have the power of our data. And though you may not be able to read a mind, you certainly can read data, and you certainly can read algorithms. And we know that with OpenAI and all of these other companies, they are definitely in our business. So what would it look like for them to measure emotional well-being, just like we do GDP, and then using those resources to make sure that if someone's algorithm looks as if they're not emotionally well, what ways can we guide them to get the resources and the help that they need? How can we build infrastructures of pop-ups where if you know a person is focused on this one area that doesn't seem to be that healed, that knowing that if they meditate on this that long, that there's going to be a behavior that follows that. And what does that behavior look like? And what about that person's family? We know enough information to gather resources and to create infrastructures and ecosystems digitally because of digital footprints to actually help people heal, instead of consistently seeing digital trauma day after day, in which our brains and our bodies are not physically or spiritually designed to hold that much weight. And so knowing what we know about what is being plastered all over the world digitally, how can we build systems that will have an interrupt or a disruptive algorithm for that emotional unhealthy, emotional unstable, whatever that is, because we all have a little bit of something. And so how can we use those resources to actually heal people for the future generations? Because our children are watching, our children are very much immersed into this world. And I just believe that it is our responsibility. It is the responsibility of these companies who want to come in and build these data centers to say, if you are going to give me your data, then we need an exchange of making sure that you guys are building proper resources to help heal what has been broken generationally, whether it be digitally or prior to.
Sure. It seems to me that we don't yet have a colloquial semblance of trust when it comes to these shippable models deployed around the world under the banner of what it is that you're expressing right now when we talk about this need. As I listen under the sound of your voice, Lindsay, and thinking about, if you will, the magnitude of the expression of, if everybody, hypothetically, hopefully to be grounded in reality, takes your words of expression, takes those to heart, exercises that within their ecosystem, their environment domain, and they do put a context of care as much as they look at the gross domestic product, the GDP. They take that context of care, they use that narrative, run with that, fly with eagle's wings if they could. What's on the other side of that? We talk about the things that should be, the things that are needed. We see the vast void. But what does that look like on the other side from your lens once that's adopted and subscribed, and under the context of GatherVerse Asia Tech for Humanity Summit, for those that are watching and saying, what does it have to do with Asia? Everything. We are in a global AI arms race. There's never been more of an important time to have this discussion. And when we have GatherVerse events such as this, that it's not just for Asia, but it's transmetropolitan, transcontinental, for everyone to be able to take advantage of, to listen and to learn. And it's a two-way, mutual discussion between GatherVerse and Asia, Asia to GatherVerse. But to know that these conversations are universally colloquial and highly opportune to be adopted. But what does that look like on the other side when they do take these things of this guidance, of this North Star that you just presented to us?
Well, what it looks like is we'll see. However, if we know what being emotionally unwell looks like, if we know what the lack of emotional care looks like in community, regardless of where you live, whether you're in Asia, whether you're in North America, whether you're in Africa, wherever you are, we know what it looks like to be mentally unwell. We know what dysfunction does. We know how that unhealthy, when a person is not well in their emotional landscape, we know that there are statistically results in behaviors and in income and in the way that we prepare the way for the future generations. We know what that can result in. And we only focus on the currency of finances, but we don't really realize that emotional well-being is a sustainability. It's a sustainability strategy. It's the way that not only do we obtain wealth, but it's how we're able to not just obtain it, keep it, multiply it, grow it, keep it in generations, make sure that we have something for, the future. And so for me, it looks like this person has been going on this binge, searching things that a healthy human being would not search as a father, a mother, a single person, whatever. And so in understanding how that keeps popping up in their data, what resources do we need to integrate? What companies should we galvanize to put pop-ups, inbound marketing? If we use it for manipulation to make sure that people can buy the product, because that is a capitalistic, of course, colonizer's model. What would it look like to have an asset mapping situation where we look at human beings as valuable resources, valuable, creative human beings who have the opportunity to be great in this world? And what can we invest? How can I partner with a company such as HubSpot globally to make sure that we are using that inbound marketing to put therapy resources in their algorithm?
Sure.
Put Need a Therapist, put dancing, creative, put arts, put whatever it is that we need. If we know what they're searching and we know where their mind is, because we have to get out of this model is you never know what a person is going through. You never know what's on a person's mind. Well, digitally, that's a lie. Because that is our secret diary, supposedly secret, but it's really not a secret. And if we actually use that information to heal people, which we can, the question is it profitable? Because that is a capitalistic model to say, how would that be profitable? Well, if you were to heal people intentionally by reading their data, then you get more profitable human beings from an emotional standpoint, a mental standpoint, a community standpoint, a employment standpoint. And you can say, well, people are out of jobs now, so that's why people are emotionally unhinged. No, people may be out of their jobs, but the truth is they have a creative opportunity to actually operate in their purpose, to actually operate in what they were called to do, because the every day-to-day skills that were truly draining them, causing them to veer off and doom scroll, can be managed with AI. That can be managed. That can be assisted. So how do we serve the human? And there was a woman, and I can't think of her name, please forgive me. She was in the panel, not the last panel, but the panel before. And she said, she hit a great point when she said, what does it mean to be human? That is the basis of where we are now. And that sounds like, oh, it means that you're a human being. You breathe, you live. No, because we have been human beings trained to be robots. Now we are detoxing from having to be automated information systems.
What does that mean? What does that mean, trained to be robots?
When I say trained to be robots, I mean trained to not necessarily move with empathy, not necessarily move with any nuance, but have a black and white view of I have to get this done, and moving off of logic, but technical logic. Not
what
nuance.
What is empathy? I hear there's a political rhetoric. There's a political rhetoric that's widespread right now at the moment. It's some that would challenge the idea that empathy is a made-up word that's really in the bastion of liberalism, if you will, but not to go into the political vernacular. But from your lens, what is empathy?
Well, empathy is understanding. So we can take, if you want to use another word, which I think it's absolutely nonsense that we can take a psychological term and an emotional term and politicize it. However, if we want to use a different word, we can say understanding. It is not codependency. It is not the ability to be overgiving and overly understanding, but it's the ability to see someone's story, which human beings, we all have a story. We all can connect through experiences and moments, is to see someone's story, see what they may be going through, try to put yourself in their shoes. And if you can't imagine that, give grace, give discretion, say, I don't understand that experience. However, I can understand it if I were in it. I don't really know how I would feel. And giving a person the ability to be emotionally free in how they feel versus policing that.
It seems to me that under the banner of healing, care, and truth, there's a truthful discussion as the one we're having now that needs to take place more often than the deployment of a product and its capabilities. But what does this product do to you when you adopt and subscribe to it? Meaning that if we put so much emphasis on the capabilities of a model and we have these benchmarks of technological scale and hyperscale, but what about the human benchmark?
Right. Are you asking me to interject? What about the human? I think that if we don't get a handle on still seeing human beings as assets, because what colonization and what capitalism does is it's going to take the best route to profitability. And so if we're looking at our systems, we're looking at AI, we're looking at the future of technology, we see from a fear standpoint, we can see that it's anti-human. We could say that there's no need for us anymore. But from a truthful standpoint is that we are wired for connection. We are wired to be in community with one another. We are wired, like you live longer when you have at least one friend, right? And so understanding that we do need humans. We need humans to run these data centers. We need humans and we need them to be healthy. And we need them to care about what it is that they're doing. And so if we care about that, then we have to invest in them being human. And what that looks like is making sure we're caring for the individual. It looks like promoting rest, because now you have time. Now you have the time to actually figure out what rest looked like for you. It looks like, what does a work week actually look like in this new workforce? Is 5 days to 7 days a week, is that necessary now? Or can we optimize our time by filling our cups up emotionally. So then we can show up to said data centers. So we can show up as a project manager. We can show up as whatever it is that we're doing in our work, and we can show up fully, and we can see each other in that work. And maybe we may reduce workplace abuse, workplace violence. Maybe we could reduce gun violence. Maybe if we tapped into the algorithm of children, we won't just put parental blocks, because they're going to find a way to find something. But we actually read their data and figured out what our children would need in the school systems, in their homes. Maybe it can be a way for us to figure out what children are being secretly abused. That's what it looks like from a human standpoint to me.
But how do we take it from a maybe to decolonization and to addressing extractive structures, meaning that somebody comes into my farm field, they take my carrots, but they replace it with no seed? How do we take this maybe and turn it to the first step? That first step would lead us to the next step. That's what I want. I don't want us to live and to be mired and steeped in the
theory,
the theoretical fiction.
Yes.
I would prefer us to now walk on the line of, how do we take these things that are in your heart and mind, Lindsay, and to take that next step of influence towards those that these multi-trillion-dollar platforms that has gargantuous leverage, how are small voices heard in such a large sea?
That's such a good question. And from a practical standpoint, we actually have to divorce ourselves from being colonizers. And we have to divorce ourselves from the colonized model where you go in and take the carrots and leave no seed. But you actually have to go in and say, you have done such a wonderful job growing these carrots. We are very inspired by the way that you grew these carrots. And even though we have the resources to come in and take all of these carrots, it is not the ethical, nor is it the human thing to do. And so, well, we can argue whether it's the human thing to do. It's just not the ethical thing to do.
Sure.
And so instead of doing that, let's sit down. We want to grow more carrots. So let's have a conversation with you about what's the asset here? What great of a job you have done. How can we make it better? And how can we both benefit mutually out of this situation? 0.05, 0.25, 0.5, 10%. That is a small piece of a large global pie when you think about equity. They do it all the time. Venture capitalists do it all the time. We invest. And whether or not we take 1%, it's still something, right? Having a conversation versus coming in and saying, I could take all of these carrots and leave you with no seed. But the truth is, where has that gotten us? Where has that exploitation actually gotten us? And we can say there's an opportunity cost. But when you exploit people, you will inevitably get violence, whether it's abuse, emotional violence, whether it's degradation of community, whether it's apathy. In my TEDx talk, I address emotional freedom and transforming apathy. And we like to judge it and say, well, they have degraded their community. They've completely left it desolate. No, because you have these big banks, big people coming in saying, you got these carrots. I'm going to take all of these carrots. Not only am I not going to leave you seed, but I am going to transform these carrots. And I don't care about what happens to you.
And that's because we have a sharecropper mindset. We have yet to embark upon the daring venture of going to own our own farms, no matter the color, no matter the gender, owning our own farms, taking our own seed, planting into our own soil, tilling our own earth, tilling our own ground, our own water, the light from heaven, the sun, and to grow our own carrots to where the extractive culture is no longer possible because I own these carrots. I own this data. And so I have this autonomy and agency so that I don't even have to try to make the attempt to be able to convince the OpenAIs and the Anthropics and the Microsofts of the world to where I can compete and build my own, because smaller ships turn the channel quicker than big ones. So what it seems to me, Lindsay, of the actionable steps forward is that we're really talking about ownership. I don't want to rent the opportunity. I want to own the opportunity. I don't want to spend all this time attempting to convince the Sam Altmans of the world and the Bill Gates of the world, Sundar Pichai, and all these other different leaders, Satya Nadella, you name it. Instead of me putting so much emphasis on trying to turn them onto a narrative that I desire as my own to be manifested, I'd rather see you see the carrots that I have. And instead of me trying to buy a carrot from you, you may buy a carrot from me. It seems to me, under the vertical of healing, care, and truth, that as the adage goes, that we must be the change that we want to see. If we're going to see these things come to pass, as I listen to you, Lindsay, it would be a shame, GatherVerse, to keep this dialogue suspended, data timestamped, immutable, and beheld only in this conversation.
I agree.
What benefit have we done? And all we've given is just words. Words are off the wind. The wind's blowing, but the trees aren't moving. You see, let me ask you this as we wind this down. We think about healing, care, and truth. You talked about something that I think is so inherently important: sustainability. That you can amass all the wealth of the world, but if it is not sustainable, not for the sake of product sustainability, but human sustainability of civilization itself, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll accept the chastisement. It seems to me that if we don't think a product delivery as the mechanism of sustainability, that at some point, those that are in the lower echelons of society, which make up the mass, not only will they allow their voices or permit their voices to be heard because of the lack of inclusion, because of the lack of accessibility of what our roundtable just discussed, that no one can sustain in an environment of an eco-habitat if the whole habitat isn't fed, nurtured, and growth. Do you see that? We have these multi-trillion-dollar and multi-billion-dollar companies that are seeing profits the size of countries. But around the fortification are people that suffer so low and in such degradation that the imbalance has enough leverage to make what seems as a strong fortification of trillions of dollars weak. Because at the end of the day, you are in a system ecologically. And if the concentric circles are not safe and well maintained, then the whole foundation is rotten. Do you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And I think we're at, an inflection point where we have to make a decision on who we want to be. Who do we want to be? What kind of human beings do we want to be? What kind of humanity collectively do we want to be? What kind of world do we want to have? And it comes down to an individual standpoint of the conversation that you and I are having, not just a conversation, but the actual intentional care and the desire to want to see differently, to want to see human beings flourish, and then taking that passion and taking these conversations and partnering with those $1 trillion organizations, collaborating with them and saying, look, if you understand sustainability, you will understand how important it is for us to provide resources to make sure we have an emotionally well workforce, an emotionally well entrepreneurial ecosystem. Because you can you've seen people with millions and billions and trillions of dollars still jump off of buildings, right? You've seen, it's not that money can buy happy moments, right? But if a person with a broken heart, a person with a broken life, a person with a story that has not been healed, it's fragmented, you will always find their proclivities and their vices in that. And if you give it more money, you'll see more of that destruction.
That's right.
So how collaboration, partnership, but not just talk, actual finding the resources where people can put their money where our mouth is, and us building strategy around that and testing it, finding spaces to test it. I think one of the greatest places to test it is with children and with the schools, and seeing if we were to plug in some of these healing algorithms, right? Disrupting it with some healing, disrupting it with, some affirmation, a pause, a break. What would that look like when that person takes it home? What if we took families and did that experiment? I'm curious, and I want to know what it would look like. Will we build healthier families? Perhaps.
And the reality is that in order to reach the families, it has to be accessible. But more important, it seems to me, before our technology and our innovations at scale reach our children, they need to be fortified in trust.
Yes.
And if what's happening to them and deployed to them isn't surrounded and imbued and encircled in trust, then I wouldn't want this technology anywhere near my nieces and nephews. Absolutely. And the children and the babies of this world, right?
Right. Because it already is.
And it already is.
Already is. When we say trust, it's already, the trust is not there because it's not trustworthy. There is some untrustworthy things, right? We know that to be true. And so it takes people like us who actually care, who have been vetted, who have dealt in those systems, who are trusted resources, trusted strategists, trusted representatives to test it, because we know what the adverse looks like. We know what it looks like on the other side. We know what the lack of trust looks like. We know what the algorithms are. We know what the behavior looks like. After meditating on, these feeds for so long, we know what that looks like. So what would it look like if we were to disrupt it?
It seems to me as I listen and I take real reflection of ponderative consideration that we only have a little bit of time, don't we, for collaboration, because at some point we'll be collaborating with the representation of the leadership of these companies with machines, and that the machine species is real and AI is an apex predator. And the reality is that we're communicating more with machines than ever before. And in many ways, it adds more layers to the necessity of human peer-to-peer communication and dialogue, of human tech-centered transfer. And when we lose that, we do lose humanity.
Yes.
When we lose the ability to be able to communicate heart to heart, not heart to algorithm, but heart to heart, with empathy, then there's something that can never be replaced. And some things in life can never be made whole again. My final question for you is this, Lindsay. What will you do with this that's been expressed today? Clearly, you are already on the path of pursuit. Else, I don't believe that these expressions could be rendered from your heart. But on top of that, today, tell the GatherVerse community what will you do with this time that's given for such embarkment?
Yeah, so I believe that I'm already doing the work, and I believe that we all have a part to play in that just aligns with what our gifts are. And so I happen to be a strategist, but I also happen to be a strategist who can connect with people through my voice. And so I'm an advocate in a way. I'm an activist. I'm a disruptor, and a visionary. And I'm going to continue to go about having these conversations, but also making sure that I'm having these conversations with these companies to see how I can bridge the gap, who I can introduce to who. I may not be the person that's going to do all of the work. I don't believe one person can do everything, but I will continue to have these discussions and want to know what it would look like to put forth initiatives, which companies bite, which ones don't. But I will continue to test my theories, not just through my activism, but also through being a healing-centered strategist, to build frameworks. Next month, I'll be talking with In Workplace Abuse to their workforce about, how not to judge their apathy as, a lack of motivation, but actually a symptom of a much larger system at scale that has exploited them. I'm having a talk with them. I'll be in Dallas having conversations about urban morphosis and what it would look like to reimagine and design cities from an emotional well-being and public health perspective. And so I'm doing the work. And I will continue to raise my voice and bring forth these ideas. And if I don't see them in my lifetime, I know that my son will, or maybe his children will, but I'm doing my part.
We gain so much from our parents and the things that they give us in life. And from there, from fire to fire and heart to heart, we carry these things within. And from within us, we distill this and we give this to our own, from the progenitor of the progeny, from the parent substance to the child, and that child will carry the baton in their heart forward into this vast frontier we know not of. We've never been this way before, audience. Do not let Lindsay go into this frontier, GatherVerse, alone. Lindsay, thank you for joining with us. Thank you for giving us a moment of your time and a very challenging and powerful moment in your life.
Yes.
As quick as it comes, as quick as it goes, know that you have friends here. And if not many, you have this one.
Thank
You are not alone. These aren't just words. We thank you for your time. We're grateful for your leadership. It means a lot. Thank you for giving us a part of your heart. We keep that close. Our gather was well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And as quick as it comes, as quick as it goes, when we talk about any summit that we host here in global community with GatherVerse, where we meet at the intersection of accessibility, education, equality, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, ethics, trust, care, and compassion. That when we have people speak at this intersection, they can't just bring pitch decks and presentations, platforms and products and applications and protocols. But it necessitates more. It necessitates that they come prepared, fully equipped with heart power. It's the only way that GatherVerse runs. We meet here at GatherVerse Asia for a specific reason. that while we're in an AI global arms race in the world, which is true, might there be a global peace race to complement? That while countries and continents leverage and go against each other, we still live in a world of trade. That bridges can be bound, friendships fortified, made, and some that can last forever. GatherVerse is one of the very few remaining platforms in the world that cares about what you innovate when it comes to human betterment. And when I say GatherVerse, it's not Christopher Lafayette per se. It's not Lynn Gattal or Russell Bundy or Kalpesh Darajaya or so many of the others that are with us. We hear from people like Salvation from Lagos, Nigeria. We hear from people here in Silicon Valley. We hear from those from Mumbai. We hear from those from Beijing, Singapore, Malaysia. Each person, each heartbeat has a part to play, and they must be allowed to play them. And we only get to do this for so long, all of us that have been granted permission. We've been given a mic, we've been given a camera, and we've been given a desire, a gumption to show up, to speak. Do we understand the coming wave that's upon us when it comes to the machine species? Will we even care? Or will these words that have come out of all of our mouths this week, today, last week, this year, hold more significant value when it's too late? When it's too late. In some places in this world, we're not even granted the ability to say these things because our speech has been stifled, shut down, blocked. What will you do with the time that's given to be able to express upon these things? I want to say thank you for all of you that are attending us still at GatherVerse.live, our mainstay home broadcast for GatherVerse. Thank you for those that have journeyed with us, whether in YouTube or Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and elsewhere. Thank you. Share what you've heard, but don't just share it, live it. Don't settle for anyone's technology. Make sure that it's fortified in trust. Make sure that there's someone on the other end that's giving you a thing cares. This is the most profound and important time that we'll ever know of innovation. And time is unforgiving. The wall of time moves, persistent, diligent, confrontational. It will not surrender. And we all succumb to time. And we get this little bit of time together. We'll always turn the lights on, even if there's just one or more hearts that have a desire to speak in what we call GatherVerse Tech for Humanity Summit, along with many more speakers that to arrive in the coming weeks. From the Middle East to North America to South America to Europe, I see you. Our food summit, money summit, book summit, shout out to the superhero engine, She Summit, AI Summit, GV 2026, and more. Many announcements are to be made sooner rather than later for GatherVerse, and we hope that you are here for each of them. We've had thousands and over hundreds of thousands of people come in and out of these spaces. And every moment is precious, even in the consideration of the time that we're given I do not, and I hope that you do not, take it for granted. GatherVerse Asia, we see you. And gather was well. Good night.
She sewed my new blue jeans. My father was a gambling man down in New Orleans. Now the only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk. And the only time he's satisfied is when he's on a drug. Oh, mothers, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. Well, I got one foot on the platform, the other foot on the trail. Going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy, and God